Mother's Voice podcast.
The Mother's Voice
The
podcast.
Mother's Voice podcast. Tales of motherhood from around the world.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Mother's Voice podcast. My name is Marion Duggan and it's my pleasure to share with you these interviews which have been recorded with a number of different women about their experience of early motherhood. For this season of the podcast, we've partnered with Derby Museum and Art Gallery and would like to thank their volunteer team who have made these interviews possible. Each episode has been edited from a longer conversation into pieces somewhere between 8 and 10 minutes long, and we hope we've distilled some of the complicated joy, hard work and overwhelming change that these mothers have experienced. For more information about the Mother's Voice and the wider project Nightlight Lullabies, please visit murmurationarts.co.uk or follow the link in the show notes. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy listening to these interviews as much as we enjoyed recording them. Episode 9, Claire Lightfoot.
My name's Claire Lightfoot. I live in Belper now, originally from South Kent. So I have a stepdaughter who is 32. I have two biological daughters, Tilly and Ava, who are both deaf. They're 18 and 20. I work with deaf children now and have done for the last 15 years. I wouldn't be doing what I do now if it wasn't for their disability. I always knew I wanted children. And in my head, I wanted girls. I don't know why, but I don't know whether that was just from my experience, but I couldn't see myself being a parent of boys. I'm sure I would have been fine. I became much more empathetic. I try not to judge a book by its cover because I think deafness is one of those things that you can't see. And it used to really frustrate me when people would say, "Oh, I didn't realise she doesn't sound deaf." Because Ava particularly, because she's nearly profoundly deaf and her hearing deteriorated when she was around 10. So she is nearly at profound levels, but she's an incredibly intelligent, articulate, fierce young woman. But Tilly's very different. And she was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic when she was 15 as well, but it's not stopped her. I always wanted to potentially take time off, but when we found out about their hearing, it kind of confirmed that I needed to be visibly present. Both girls were born at around the time that the newborn hearing screening came out. And Tilly passed her newborn screening. She was quite loud when she was a baby, but she'd stopped babbling, she'd stopped making noises, and I just said, there's something. I knew there was something going on. So she referred through to audiology, and we took Tilly for a hearing test. They said, yes, she's definitely got a hearing loss. We're not quite sure what's causing it. They wanted to do an operation to do grommets. So they did surgery quite quickly and did what's called an ABR, the auditory brainstem response test. And we were expecting them to come out and say, we've put grommets in, it's just fluid, this is one of those things of childhood, she's going to be fine. But they didn't. They came out and said, there's a permanent moderate hearing loss. And Ava's hearing loss is now severe to profound. Their hearing aids, which were always pink when they were little, so they get moulds measured for when they have hearing aids, and you get there's a catalogue of what pattern you can have on the moulds. I have spent more time looking at which glitter, or Ava went through phases. We had Mr. Men on there. She had Liverpool Football Club on hers at one point. If you compared them when they were little, Tilly she's quite sensible. She likes a routine. So hers, she tended to have just kind of the glitter moulds. Ava's, you never knew quite what she was going to want on hers. But that would be the most important part of the appointment, was choosing what colour their moulds were going to be. As they grew older, we had an amazing place in Derby. We had an early years centre, and it was a semi-detached house, had a ball pit upstairs, which they loved. You could go from 10 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was a social worker from the deaf access team there. There were deaf communicators, so signers there. Speech and language therapists would come along every so often, and they would run sing and sign groups, do signed story sessions, but it was never without talking as well. So it was this real kind of total communication approach. And it introduced me to the deaf world, which I'd not been involved with at all. All of the people that we socialised with were hearing. But I kind of felt like we had our foot in both camps by doing that. And it gave the girls a sense of identity. They had their foot in both camps as well. I was very, very aware every day that they were different from their friends, and their language didn't progress in the same way as their other friends. And there would be some parents who would say, my child can say 50 words. And I'm thinking, mine can't. I was probably not very kind. But I would say, no, mine can't. And it used to just make people sit up and maybe stop boasting. They adored stories. They loved Angelina Ballerina, Shirley Hughes, Dogger. They read that incessantly. But then their hearing aids would come out and they would go to bed. And Tilly, particularly when she was little, I couldn't walk away. I had to stay with her until she was asleep, because I think to be in a bedroom in the dark and not be able to hear anybody coming in and out of the room was an issue. Tilly had a musical light-up toy. We knew she couldn't hear it, but she could see the lights on it, and she found that quite soothing. But they would, if they woke up in the night, you couldn't just go and kind of resettle them. I had to sit with them until they went back to sleep. Otherwise, they would become quite disorientated. So I'm a teacher of the deaf now. And Evelyn was my first teacher of the deaf, and they come and visit. They work 0 to 19, so they come and visit you at home. And she was deaf herself. And so I had this role model coming to see the girls, and she was the most incredible woman. And I suddenly thought, no, actually, there isn't going to be a huge amount that they can't do. Their hearing difficulties have defined the people that they are now, and it certainly defined me. I sometimes think I've expected more from them because I need them to prove something. But I quickly realised that we didn't need to actually set the bar differently. I just needed to make sure other people made the adjustments they needed, and then they were going to fly.
This podcast was created by Murmuration Arts and produced by the Academic Podcast Agency as part of Nightlight Lullabies Derby. Made possible by the National Lottery Heritage Fund and Arts Council England, in partnership with Derby Museums, the Royal School for the Deaf Derby and Derby Feste. Supported by D Youth Hub, Action Deafness and Family Hubs Derby.